Hey everybody, what is going on? You just saw the announcement from Sigma. We've actually had the lenses in our hands for the past couple of weeks. The all-new Sigma 150 to 600 f5 to 6.3 DGDN for the Sony E mount as well as the L mount. Now, because there are users for the Sony E mount and of course separate users for the L mount, I'm going to do two separate videos highlighting the strengths and how this lens performs on a variety of cameras. For you Sony folks here, I'll be testing it with the A9 II and the Alpha 1, which is mounted on right now. And the separate video will be with the SL2 from Leica and of course the Sigma FPL. So do check out that video if you're interested in how this lens performs on the L mount cameras. But for Sony users, this video is for you. Anyway, I do want to thank Sigma Singapore for allowing me to test drive this lens, both lenses for that matter, and the Singapore Zoo for allowing me to shoot here. Having said that, these are my thoughts and my thoughts only. So let's get down to talk about the all-new Sigma 150 to 600 f5 to 6.3 DGDN. We're going down a drop on a This video is brought to you by Logitech. Here at Geek Culture, gaming is a way of life and we always enjoy dishing out headshots with Logitech G Pro X Super Light Mouse. The lightweight wireless mouse combines excellent performance with classy, no-frills look. Designed with pros and engineered to win, it offers crisp and responsive clicks. The smooth operator even allows you to swap out the magnetic dongle storage compartment for greater gliding ease. Check out all of its other features over at logitechg.com. All right, so let's talk about what is inside of this lens. You've got 25 elements in 15 groups. You've got 4 FLD elements, 2 SLD elements. This is dust and splash resistant. This is the sports lens, so it is much more durable. There's also oil repellent coating on the lens itself. We've got this all new dual action zoom on this, so you can actually pull it out like this, or you can use the zoom ring, which is a nice touch. We also have this zoom torque switch as well. So we have lock, tension, and smooth thereabouts. I might be off on some of the verbiage, but you know what I'm talking about. Lock is lock. The tension gives you a little bit more of a slower zoom out, and then smooth is for maximum speed, especially when you're shooting sports or wildlife and you need that 600 millimeters right away. There are various switches on this: autofocus, manual focus, your optical stabilization, number 2, number 1 and off, your custom C2, C1 and off on this. You have programmable buttons here if you want to program it to some sort of settings to your liking, aperture or ISO or whatever it may be. And yes, the tripod ring on this is also nice because it does stop at various different points with the white marker, which is nice. It doesn't just swivel around at its heart's content. It actually has some tension points, which is really nice to have. This is an Arca Swiss compatible tripod mount on this, so keep that in mind. And you can remove it for these 4 screws, but again, you cannot remove the entire ring. So the weight of this lens comes in at 2,100 grams or 74.1 ounces thereabouts. And in terms of your minimal focusing distance, 58 centimeters at 150 millimeters and 280 centimeters at 600 millimeters. So you can get pretty close up on some subjects here, and you'll see that throughout some of the photos I'll take in this review. But I mean, those of you who know Sigma Sport Lens, you know the durability, the build quality. I mean, these are made in Japan. This is a robust lens. They just perform beautifully. The autofocus on this is lightning quick. I'll talk about that more in the usability and performance of it, because I think a lot of you are going to be surprised. Being a third-party lens for a Sony E mount on the Alpha 1, how does this perform? Let's find out. All right, so right now we're at the tiger area here with the white tigers, and this one here is just playing around. Eye tracking works fantastic on the lens, just like a native lens. It sticks on like glue. Obviously Sony's IBIS is not going to be, I would say, class leading, but it's not that bad. It's actually much better than before. Just gotta adjust the settings on this. Let me get this guy here. I'm at 600 millimeters right now at f6.3, went over 6/40 of a second. I'm about, because of the low light here, I'm about 4,000 ISO. Not a problem though with this camera. That's why I use the A1. The Alpha 1 is a beast for a higher ISO. Dual action zoom is fantastic, so I can use the ring if I want, but if you just pull out the lens, it speeds it up tremendously. So here's what's interesting about this lens on the Alpha 1. Okay, now Sony has stated before third-party lenses won't achieve the speeds of, let's say, native GM lenses on this camera system, right? This is getting pretty damn close, guys. I mean, you know, this whole 30 frames per second thing, I know it's a hot topic on the forums, on Facebook groups and everything, and everybody's trying to figure out what settings to use and what lenses work the best, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, when I reviewed a previous third-party lens here on the channel, the Tamron 150-500, obviously we said, look, that came around 15 to 20 frames per second. Just based on my initial findings, is performing better than the Tamron on the Alpha 1 in terms of speed. Eye tracking focus is fantastic. It locks on. I'm on animal eye tracking right now. It locks on like glue with these African painted dogs. This is very impressive. And for 150 to 600, you're getting a better focal range than the G Master lens. That's not to say that the G Master is a bad lens. It's a fantastic lens. I love that lens. But for you out there that maybe want to stretch your dollar a little bit more and have a little bit more focal range and have most of the performance of a G Master lens on the Alpha 1, this is a hard lens to say no to. It really is. This is very, very impressive. Now, one thing to note here on the Sony E-mount version, as of yet, there's no teleconverter available. That's only available for the L-mount variant of this lens. So perhaps Sigma will release one in the future. I'm sure they will. I mean, they have to, right? I mean, this lens, obviously at 6.3 at 600 millimeters, when you use a teleconverter, that's going to obviously reduce the amount of light coming into the lens significantly. But if you need that reach, you know, it makes a lot of sense. And if you're in bright daylight, you definitely can maximize it. But I mean, 600 for where we're at right now here at the zoo is more than adequate. As a matter of fact, sometimes I'm not even at 600. You know, one thing to take note of here on this lens is obviously we have this lock, like tension and smooth switch here. Now, this is a little bit different from the previous version of this lens. And, you know, tension is great if you want to just fine tune your, you know, your zoom on that. You still can use the dual action, but it's just a little bit slower and it works well. But the thing is that you always got to remember to lock this lens, because if you want to walk around, see case in point, in smooth, it drops down. So it's not a deal breaker, it's just something to take note of, that you do need to lock this lens or be aware of it or set it to tension for the most part. This feels like it needs to be a little bit more lubed. All right, maybe I just get it lubed. Ask Sigma if they can lube my lens. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? Yep. Very wrong. So we're doing a autofocus test here on the 150 to 600. It's mounted on a Zaki's A7 III. And we're gonna see how this tracks me. Moving around here like this. Now this may or may not be a lens you use for video, but if you want to see how the performance is. Zaki, what do you think? It's equivalent to a native Sony lens?
Yeah.
It's good, right?
Good.
Locks on. He's on a monopod with it right now. That's why he's so steady. I mean, Zaki's a strong guy, but, you know, it's a heftier setup. All right. Boom. Bam. We're good. We're golden. Anyway, let's go into Lightroom right now. We'll take a look at images from the Alpha 1 and the A9 II with the Sigma 150 to 600 f5 to 6.3 DGDN. All right, guys, we're now in Lightroom taking a look at images from the Sigma 150 to 600 f5 to 6.3 DGDN for the Sony E-mount. Majority of these images were taken with the Sony Alpha 1. I'll be showing you some of those images from the zoo that we were shooting the review at. You know, I really like the Alpha 1, guys. I mean, yeah, it's a very expensive camera, and of course, it's Sony's top of the line, but it is a damn good camera, especially in higher ISO situations, autofocusing, color. I'm really liking what Sony's done with this camera system. I'll just point that out there, but I've already said this in a couple of reviews already. But anyway, let's look at images with this Sigma lens. First off, let's look at this flamingo real quick. Now, I was taking this on the run. I mean, none of these shots were taken with tripods. Everything was handheld. And this was taken in the River Safari as the boat was going by. ISO 6400, 431.7 millimeters, f6.3, 1/320th of a second. I should have cranked up the shutter speed a bit more, but this was sort of in a darker situation because the flamingos were in the shade. And this is before edit, then after edit, before edit, and after edit. Look at the fall off on here. Now at ISO 6400, you're going to see some grain popping in here, but this is very well controlled, easily correctable. If I want to use some noise reduction software in Lightroom, Capture One, if I want to use Topaz Denoise, I can clean this image up beautifully. Anyway, I'm very happy with it. The detail, the eye, all that right there. And yeah, I mean, you know, I can't complain. Not bad at all. Let's look at this picture of this panda here who is taking a nap. And you know, sometimes you get pandas that are wide awake and they're moving around or they're chewing on stuff, and sometimes they're sleeping. This boy was sleeping here. I believe it's a boy. I think it's a boy. Anyway, maybe it's a girl. But anyway, taking a look, this is before edit, and then this is after edit, before edit, and after edit. And look at, I was just trying to bring out the detail around the eye area, the fur, I mean, look how sharp this is. I mean, this is really, really, really impressive. In terms of the numbers on this, ISO 3200, 600 millimeters, f6.3, 1/320th of a second. I'm happy with this, folks. I can reduce the noise, the ISO a little bit more if I wanted to with, you know, some software. But I mean, look at the detail that this is able to capture. I mean, just a beautiful lens, and the fall off from what's in focus to what's out of focus is really nice. It's a nice gradual fall off on that. Okay, here's a red panda, and I believe it's called a red tail panda or a red panda. Again, I don't work at the zoo, but let's take a look at this image. And this little guy was absolutely adorable, chewing on some branches here. He was behind a tree. I was able to capture some shots here. Animal eye tracking worked fantastic on the Alpha 1, just like a native lens it would on the Sigma. So it was fantastic. No issues at all with that, guys. And look at the detail I'm able to capture with this. Look at the detail in the eyes. So this is before edit, after edit, before edit, after edit. ISO 4000, 559.9 millimeters in terms of its focal length, f6.3, 1/320th of a second. And even at ISO 4000, clean this up a little bit. It is beautiful. Beautiful image. I'm really happy with it. And this little panda is just absolutely adorable. Now, here's a picture of this snake. Now, I was shooting through plexiglass with this, so of course it's not going to be the sharpest, but I was pleasantly surprised when I locked on focus on the eye, and I got pretty close to this. I mean, this is an ISO 12,800, 213 millimeters in terms of focal length, f5.6, 1/100th of a second. Now, I was indoors in this reptile area of the zoo. You got plexiglass, the lighting is off. You know, I cranked up the ISO because I wanted to capture this snake. It was moving around quite rapidly. But look at the detail I'm able to capture even at ISO 12,800 with this lens. I mean, this is impressive, folks. This is the power of the Alpha 1, but look how sharp this lens is from Sigma. And I'll show you another image here of this after I clean it up through Topaz Denoise and sharpening. This is what it looks like when you can push that editing a little bit more and how clean that image looks. I'm really, really happy with it. Okay, here's another picture of this lizard here. ISO 1250, 221 millimeters in terms of focal length, f6.3, 1/40th of a second. Indoors, inside that reptile area. I wanted to keep the ISO low, so here we go. I had steady hands for this one. 1/40th of a second at 221 millimeters. This is, I'm proud of myself. I put the lens right against the glass and I just focus right in on it. And look at that end result. Really, really happy with it. Before edit, after edit, before edit, and after edit. Now let's go to these African painted dogs here. Now, eye tracking on the dogs works fantastic. ISO 8000, 600 millimeters, f6.3, 1/640th of a second. And I just locked on the eye of this dog, just staring at the other one there. This has been cropped in just a bit. Let me show you that. This is, of course, the crop on that. And again, I'm happy with this. I'm really, really happy with this. You can clean it up a little bit more, bring down the noise a bit, but the detail is there. The base is there at ISO 8000. No complaints whatsoever. it looks really good. And I'll show you an image here, what I did after a little bit of editing with noise reduction software and sharpening to really enhance that even more so. Okay, and a couple more images here. This is of a white tiger. As I love these white tigers. They're beautiful, majestic animals. And look at this. I mean, beautiful. ISO 3200, 600 millimeters of 6.3, 1/800ths of a second. Look at the detail you're finding in this fur. Yes, it has been edited slightly. This is before edit, and then after edit, before edit, and after edit. I was bringing down the greens a little bit here. But I mean, just look at the detail we're finding in this. It's just really an impressive lens that we're finding here from Sigma. I have to say, it's really, really exciting. And here's a black and white version of that, slightly different position, but again, really, really happy with this in terms of sharpness, detail. This is before edit, and here's after edit. Again, edits are personal preference. You may like or dislike it, but as I've said throughout this review, I mean, this lens is very impressive for the price point, but enough of me talking about it in Lightroom, the fall off, the bokeh, how it renders animals, the eye tracking, the focusing. It's fantastic. As a matter of fact, sorry, I'm going to show you one more image here of this orangutan here, just because of the detail it's able to capture right here. If you want to know how sharp this lens can get, ISO 2000. 600 millimeters of 6.3, 1/640th of a second here. Look at this orangutan. Look at the eyes. Look what I'm getting here on this. This is before edit, and here's after edit. Before edit, after edit. Great dynamic range out of the Alpha 1, but look at the detail I'm able to rescue here in the eyes. Again, I can clean this up even more so, but ISO 2000, beautiful. Look at the fall off from what's in focus to the background. The hairs right here. It is stunning. Gosh, this lens is good. Anyway, let's go to my final thoughts on this Sigma lens. So final thoughts on this lens. You know, it's interesting. I mean, I recently tried the Tamron 150-500, and you haven't seen that video, do check it out here on the channel. And I had tried the 200-600 by Sony, the G Master lens, which is a fantastic lens. And of course, you do have the option for teleconverters with that lens to, you know, further your focal range. But this lens is really something special. Price point, under 2,000 Singapore dollars. You have the widest range in terms of focal range, 150 to 600 in a single lens, f5 to 6.3. Now, of course, when you're going to be shooting in lower light situations, at 6.3 is going to be a slight challenge to you. You're going to have to bump up the ISO. But if you're going to be shooting on the Alpha 1 or A9 II for that matter, I mean, these cameras have really good ISO performance. So I'm not going to see much issues with that. And of course, you can use some, you know, dedicated denoising platforms, let's say like Topaz Denoise or other software that can reduce that quite a bit and still maintain a lot of the detail. A lot of birders and wildlife photographers and even sports photographers use it. But this lens just performs well. And you know, in terms of autofocus speed on this, it's as a native G Master lens. In terms of the frames per second, I'm not noticing much of a difference between a G Master lens and this lens. Now, I did notice a difference when I used the Tamron, but I'm not seeing it that much here on the Sigma. Now, maybe there will be other reviewers who disagree with me. So I have it set to its optimal settings as I've learned to take advantage of those speeds here on the Alpha 1, and it is performing beautifully. Eye tracking works well on birds and animals and people. It just performs like a native Sony lens, except it's not. It's a Sigma sports lens. And this is really a stunning lens to use on this camera. Now, a lot of you ask me, would I recommend this lens over the Sony 200-600? And this is where it gets tricky because Sigma is not going to be able to come out with a teleconverter for this lens. But there are teleconverters available for the 200-600. So if you are going to need longer focal ranges beyond 600 millimeters, and while we haven't seen Sony come out with an 800 millimeter or anything beyond that yet, then you might want to opt for that G Master lens because of that flexibility. But if you're going to be one of these people that's going to say, look, I'm not going to go above 600 millimeters, and even if I am, I can crop in a little bit, then this is a hard lens to say no to, folks. This is a very hard lens to say no to. There's no real faults I can find in it. I mean, there's just some things you're going to have to learn to live with. Of course, the tripod ring here, you cannot remove it. And, you know, the torque zoom switch here, you just got to make sure to lock it when you're walking around. Otherwise, it will drop out relatively fast like this. But those are things that you learn to live with any lens that you use for quite some time. And I've enjoyed using it over the past couple weeks, and I highly, highly recommend this for anybody out there that wants a super zoom lens. This is very impressive. It really is. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Sigma 150 to 600 f5 to 6.3 DGDN for the Sony E-mount. Let me know in the comment section below, is this a lens you're gonna pick up? Would you get this over the Sony or even over the Tamron? I would love to hear from you guys. So like always, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on this channel, like this video, it helps us out a lot. Be safe out there, and I'll chat to you soon. Take care.